Ultimate Urban Fantasy Podcast, episode number 7. You're listening to the Ultimate Urban Fantasy Podcast. We've got all that's awesomely supernatural on TV, movies, books, games, and more. Your one-stop podcast for vampires, werewolves, mutants, and myths. And now here are your hosts, Archer, Sherry, and Ravenheart. Hi, I'm S.A. Archer, co-author and co-creator of the urban fantasy series The She. My co-host is Sherry Symon, actress and voice talent, and managing all the techie stuff. And our game correspondent is S. Ravenheart, who is the other half of the She creation team. And this is the Ultimate Urban Fantasy Podcast. And today we are talking with R.B.Wood, who is the author of The Prodigal's Foole. And so hi, say hi.
Awesome.
We are thrilled to be talking to you today. I checked out your book on Goodreads, and it has an impressive 4.33 stars right now with several, I think it was like 60 reviews, so that's very well done.
I didn't even find a bad one.
There are a couple of them out there that were actually really good critiques of some of the stuff in there, and I've since friended those folks and said, okay, just so you know, you're on the beta read for the next book because I want your feedback, and the rest of them, of course, I've paid off. So.
Okay. Well, you've got The Prodigal's Foole, which is the first book in your Arcane Chronicles?
The Arcana Chronicles.
Arcana Chronicles.
And if you look very closely at the cover and things of that nature, and of course, Prodigal's Foole, that was the bottle of Jack Daniels tipping over.
Yeah, that wasn't the dog shaking.
Now the dog's doing the Harlem Shake.
Yeah.
The Arcana Chronicles is a series back in 2008, 2009. It was an idea that I'd put together and started to talk about, and it's the series itself is a what if series. What if magic really existed? Okay, that's fine. A lot of series talks about magic, etc. All right, well, what if magic existed? Who would have controlled that over the years? And ultimately, what does the communication age and the instant transfer of information, all those things, where will that impact how magic is perceived and how it's worked on in the world, and what sort of conflicts will arise because of that? And I just thought that was a really fun idea. Of course I did. I'm writing it, right?
Yeah. I liked it.
And it's based on the major arcana, at least the novels are the major arcana, and I have some short story companion pieces that are going to be coming out that are based on the minor arcana of the tarot. But it focuses and is from a first-person perspective. A gentleman by the name of Symon Bryson, who is late 20s guy who is a bit immature, a bit frightened of his own power, screwed up royally, and decided to disappear for a while. And we start the story where he's actually coming back into the fold. And this is his story, and it's going to be his story from where he is now, and he's kind of broken, and what happens through him, and what happens with this whole change to this magical world during the series that will help influence who he becomes and what he needs to become to ultimately end up the series, because I do have a finite end to where I'm going. I'm trying not to say too much. I get so excited about this stuff. Right?
We know the feeling.
Yes. I mean, I'm going to try and word the questions where it gets people interested, but not give anything away. So shut me up if there's something that you don't want. Just go... Make a noise.
No, anything you ask about the book is fine.
And we did see the trailer.
Yeah, we saw the trailer for the first. I think it's the first book, the one you had on Goodreads.
Yes, that was awesome.
And that was back. The book was originally published through a small publisher called Fox Chase. They've since gone under. And last April, I brought the book out with a new cover and self-published, which I just had kind of had it with the whole small indie press thing. So I just did it myself. I've been in technology for 31 years, and that makes me very old. But
I think everybody here is very old.
No, I think I win. I'm just about 50. So
Okay.
There you go.
Not
Wow.
by much, but okay.
Wow.
I'm in denial of my real age, so yeah.
Well, my inner child is way younger than
Well, I never got past 14 from a maturity level.
me. Oh my God! I said the same thing. I said I have not progressed past 14. I mean, I'm a little bit more realistic, but I'm still a kid.
A little more realistic. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think from a writing perspective, I think that helps because you still have that sense of wonder,
Yes.
right? And I don't know about you guys in writing your series, but I get the sense you're very similar in that you know where you want to go, but when you discover new things during your writing, it's absolutely exciting and thrilling, and it's why we keep going and just creating these stories. So
Yeah. I actually wanted to talk to you more about the indie publishing side, but I wasn't sure if that was in the scope of this podcast.
Well, it's interesting. You're talking about Janice, the character, ex-lover of Symon, and some of the more interest. She's going to have a lot more to do and a lot more to say. She's going to end up reteaching Symon. I think you got hints in the book.
Yeah, she was more. Yeah, she was like focusing him or getting him to go where she felt he needed to go, like a guide.
She knows more about Symon than Symon knows about himself, and she's also, after the disaster that happened 10 years previously up, on Plum Island off of Long Island, right? Symon left. They all were kind of done with magic. At least that's what they said. That's not the case, right? So so Janice and the rest of the team have 10 more years of knowledge and experience, and the interesting part
and practice,
and practice, and the interesting thing, of course, is that although the Catholic Church, was how magic is trained with the latest and greatest practitioners that are out there, etc. It's just the Vatican controls magic and the leading body of magic, but they're not the only religion who's doing that.
Yeah.
And
we wanted to know that because that blew my mind. I mean, you had me from the first couple paragraphs because I was just like, whoa.
I love to hear that.
Yes. I was just like a dead woman over the Atlantic and just talking to him. I'm like, okay, this is going to be a ride. This is going to be fun. But I mean, when you got into the whole, and Archer and I talked about this, when you got into the whole religion and magic, the heresy of it all, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he went there. I wouldn't even go there. I mean, I love magic and supernatural and stuff, but what made you go there?
Well, again, if you think about magic, okay, magic exists in the world, it's power. Human beings want to control power. You can look at what's going on with the most recent pope. He's done. He's had it. He can't he can't deal with the politics, etc. anymore. People still run the religions, right? What was the most powerful thing in the world for thousands of years? The Catholic Church. So they have their I'm sorry?
I was like, I don't know about thousands of years.
Well, you're right. It's more like say the last 1,000 years, right? Because Catholicism hasn't been around really much. So you start with, and I kind of hinted at how long the Vatican's been running things, quite a few hundred years. But if you look at that piece, okay, the church is controlling that particular aspect of it. Symon's Latin, if anybody knows Latin, Symon's Latin is miserable, yet he still can do magic with it. Why is that? He's been taught to do magic a certain way. What Charles du Barry, for those of you on the podcast, is Simon's mentor that he's pretty pissed off at.
Mm-hmm.
And the leader of the school, if you will, and the Catholic orphanage where Symon was originally brought into and trained, he was bringing people together from diverse backgrounds, not strict Catholics, right? So that shows a little bit of, okay, well, Catholicism was beginning to wane. The church was not changing with the rest of the world. Charles was trying to force that change, which will come up later in future books with regard to some of that conflict that's out there. So there's a little hint for you.
Where did this story come from, though? I mean, did it come from your telling the story to your kids, or where did that all create in your mind, the whole concept?
Well, I love to tell stories. I've been telling stories for loads and loads of years. I've been writing off and on for a couple of dozen years, and what finally kicked this off were two things, right? My children said to me, Dad, you should write these stories down, because I used to make up stories on the fly and tell them when they were very little, and they still remember that. And my son is 16 and my daughter's 12, and they still remember that. You need to write these down. The other piece of this was I finished, in 2007, I finished J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series, and I read The Deathly Hallows, and I closed the book, and a couple things bothered me with the whole series. I loved it. I've read it multiple times. I listen to an audiobook in the car all the time. But one, why are Muggles really that stupid, especially in this day and age, to not see what's going on, or at least not have some sort of, hey, this is not quite right.
Some do because they intermarried, so some aren't completely stupid.
But I think that was like after they married, they found out.
And she deliberately did not go down that road, because that would be an entirely different sort of story. And I like that story, and that's where it started. That's really where it started. I said, okay, well, let's go down the path of magic exists, and what would happen if normal folks would start finding out about it? What would that mean? Well, of course, that means governments would start having all these secret programs and things of that nature.
Yeah, well, we talked about that in a podcast because of our government, our Department of Defense with, what's the name from
Stargate.
the 70s? Stargate projects with psychics and stuff. So there you go. I mean, we were talking about how can skeptics be that skeptical when our own government at least thinks something's up, that they're actually taking these individuals and using them. So
Men Who Stare at Goats is a perfect example of a movie about that, right? And it's one of my favorites. It's actually really good about that program that was happening in the 70s. But they don't know, right? They don't really know, so they're more than willing to. Oh my God! It looks like my dog. Archer,
this is Karma.
Hi, Karma.
She wants attention.
That's all right. I have Jack. Jack's sleeping in his cage. He's about 17, and he's a Black Lab Beagle mix. He looks almost exactly like Karma.
Oh, wow.
Yes, we know she's a Beagle mix, but we're not sure what she's mixed with. Something bigger than a Beagle, huh?
Ornery.
Half Beagle, half ornery. I think she's all ornery.
I think she's all, yeah.
So I've gone completely off track and off tangent, because I think
that's okay.
Just fun to wander around. That's all right.
We do that. We just veer. My other question, and I feel like I'm monopolizing, so you guys can jump in whenever, but I've got like all these
I know you're on a roll, so I'm like, you gotta run yourself out a little bit early, and then I'll pick it up.
Yeah, because I'm into all this. I'm into channeling, and I'm into all the whole subject of the supernatural and tarot reading and magic and all this kind of stuff. So I thought it was really interesting, your take on empaths and your take on channelers, especially when you said, I found that interesting. Instead of they're like let's say in this reality, there are people who have a spirit speak through them, just for a small bit of time. The fact that you in the book have them as very people in a weak state. They're not weak people, but people in a weak moment, and they end up getting taken over. Yep. And then these demons, I mean, they're gone. Their soul is gone, and these demons inhabit their body. But I wanted to know, and I'm not dissing this at all, but you have the, at one point, black bears taking them out, and I just wanted to know how that worked in that world, how a black bear could take out a demonically possessed person.
Well, keep in mind, right, that the connection, depending on the power of a demon in my world, right, the connection is either...
She's trying to lick the microphone.
I wasn't salivating. That was not me. Just
okay.
Okay. So various demons have a lot of power. Various demons don't have a lot of power. It takes a lot of power to cross over. The fact that the two demons that in the story they're demons and they have power, but they're about 2 steps above the Laurel and Hardy of the demon world. Let's be honest, right? Mm-hmm. And because
they're not.
They basically are. So the black bears that came into the story, you're assuming, of course, that one they were actually black bears.
Oh, okay.
And
awesome.
I think not to give too much away. This is one of those areas, so give me a minute to circle around here.
Okay.
Not to give too much away. I think you've seen, in the story, you can see that Janice is a shapeshifter.
Uh-huh.
You see that you find out who the old woman on the plane actually was.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's all kind of a familial or even tribal trait, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, now see, that explains it, because I was telling Archer, I said, if that's the case, we should all have a black bear. Everybody should get a black bear as a pet.
I'm looking at Ravenheart's face, and he's smiling. He's like, oh, he got that already.
I'm moving on.
Sorry. Go ahead, next.
Okay. Okay, this got me because you seem to have a really good knowledge of Catholicism and magic, and I mean, yes, you can research it and everything like that. I want to know how much of both you actually know. What part does it come from? Your background, your past?
Good question. Good question. My kids are being raised Catholic. My ex-wife is Catholic, and we wanted to raise the kids Catholic and continue to do so. Okay. Which means I had to do a lot of research and figure out what that actually meant so I could help when the kids were younger to guide them. Now they're old enough to where they're beginning to make their own choices and decisions, which I can help them even more with.
Yeah, I'm recovering Catholic, so...
1,000 years of collective guilt is just a hard thing to get over. But part of this is I will, in my story, I want to walk a fine line between belief and organized religion.
Yeah, you didn't hurt either one. I didn't feel like you were taking stabs at either one. You had a nice combination of both and how they worked well together, but you weren't putting down religion or putting down Catholicism, and you weren't making fun of magic either. It was they were equal. I like that.
They complement each other in more ways than one, right? And Symon, it's interesting, right? You see Symon, and he does some pretty damn powerful stuff if he's not thinking about it, if he's just reacting and emoting. He's not Catholic. He's not even remotely Catholic.
He's not religious.
He tries that. One of the scenes in the book is when Bill, who's another character in what I like to call my version of Mystery Inc. Right? Bill is trying to teach Symon to say a specific phrase.
Oh yeah.
That they want to test and throw him in a room and see how he does with it, right?
Yeah.
And he just, he took years and years and years of Latin. It takes him a while to get it. And the hint is, of course, he had a little flirtatious thing with the Latin teacher who was a nun. So that goes into a whole area I don't even want to touch at the moment, right? But from my perspective, people's beliefs are important. I think organized religion is run by people, so it's inherently flawed. And I think
thank you. That's what I've been saying for years.
Well, it's absolutely true, right? So how do you
Yes.
kind of walk that fine line? Because the people who use magic in my world are inherently flawed as well. Because people are inherently flawed, and that's the important piece
Yeah.
of what I want to do. Is I want to walk that, because I fully respect what people believe, and I will show that absolute reverence in there. But they're going to be different belief systems that come into conflict. In fact, book 2 has the introduction of another practitioner faction, right? That they didn't know about, and they do things very, very differently. Because I don't have one magic system. I have an overarching magic system that has 13 different flavors to it. So there you go. There's another little tidbit for you.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, well, we'll find out. But I think it's a boatload of fun to develop, right? So.
Yeah, we were talking right before we started the podcast that you've already got a whole idea of where several books are going to go. I know that you're almost done with The Young Practitioner. That's the next book.
That's The Young Practitioner. I was almost done with it until I realized I gave too much away and had to cut 30,000 words out of it.
just this much, right? Just a little bit. So, can you tell us a little bit about what the Young Practitioner is going to have in it, what we can expect?
Sure. The Young Practitioner is a child that is, and I can send you guys, if you'd like, you can put it in the cast later. You can show a picture of it. I can show you the cover. It's about a young child. There's a theme throughout of young people, innocence, and family throughout the series. And this is definitely a family-themed piece. It's a child born out of wedlock of one of the Mystery Inc. folks, one of the characters there. It's Bill, the priest's son.
Oh, okay.
His name is Isaac, and I'm not giving too much away. That's part of the first chapter. So there you go.
Okay.
And what happened, and what happened with him, and what happened. You learn a little bit about what happened to Simon's parents. Simon's parents were killed, and not in a Lord Voldemort type of way. They were killed for specific reasons, and they were, and Simon has some guilt over that, which I'll leave alone. But it's really the story of a couple of things. It's delves more into what the real world is trying to do with magic, and we learn a little bit more about that. We learn a little bit more about magic itself. Janice has gone away and come back. She's been gone for 3 months, so the start of the story is 3 months after the end of The Young Practitioner. And it starts off with, there's a prologue that actually takes place in World War II, but Chapter 1 starts off with Simon and somebody trying to kill him. And this is, we learn very quickly, the third assassination attempt.
Yeah, I was going to say, they've tried to kill him before.
Yeah, the events of Plum Island, the sequel, the second time around when they go out there and kind of finish the deal, is gets out, and there are people who are after him. So it's dealing with that. It's dealing with this new character that's come in. I've got a second character who is a normal, who is a mortal, who is going to play a much bigger role that I introduce. And it's really a continuation of the story of how family interacts and how people in magical realms interact. And there was one little piece at the end of the Prodigal's Foole where Simon spends a lot of time trying to find the family for the kids that they rescued. Right? And, information age being what it is, you rescue a few dozen kids, should be able to find something about somebody, right?
Yeah.
It would be amazing if there was a, technology or like a company out there that dealt a lot with technology that maybe blocked that information from ever appearing, right? So there's ramifications of what Simon was offered, what he turned down, and it's more a growth story. It's a family story, and more importantly, really, it is it's a solidifying of these group of people who are friends but are closer than family, and bringing them back together. Because Simon's got some work to do with Aaron. Simon's got some work to do with Janice. He's got some work to do with everybody.
But what I thought was interesting is you didn't put magic or Catholicism or religion as evil or bad or whatever, but I found it interesting because your take on government or the people working for government, I almost felt like they were evil or dark, like the demons they were working with, and I thought that was really interesting because I'm a huge conspiracy theorist. So, I mean, I didn't know if that's what you were intending to do, or if it was just they were humans victim of the Lucifer.
I have an issue with any large organization that has a boatload of money and abuses that. I think, in general, the people who work in those organizations are good, because I think because I mean, we have an assistant director of the FBI who helps them. He has to, right? For various reasons that when you buy the book, you'll find out.
Yes. Very good. Yeah.
But but there are people within the government who are good. There are government, like any other organization. There's good people. There are people who are just going to follow orders. There are people who are plotting and planning, and then there are people plotting and planning against the people who are plotting and planning. So it's that complex. It's those complex relationships and how those pieces kind of are going to fit together. That is going to be fun to play with.
Yeah, and also too, I couldn't figure out why. I mean, I loved Simon. I like the strong characters, men and women, and the snarky, because that's how I am. I'm very anti-authority.
Really?
Yes, I'm very. I've been fired from so many jobs I can't even keep count. I just have a issue with that. I'm very mouthy. I just say what I think. But what I couldn't figure out why I liked Simon's character so much, and I finally told Archer. I was sitting there going, he reminds me of Bruce Willis's character from Die Hard. That snarky, always has a comment, but not annoying, not like like shut up. But I mean, it was really entertaining to listen to. And
any Bruce Willis movie where he has hair, yes, absolutely.
Yes, there you go. So how much of Simon is you, or is Simon completely separate in his own little identity?
Oh, I'd be lying if I said he wasn't me at all. There's bits of me in there, and I think he's a movie buff, and he'll make movie references, and he's a bit of a dork, so that's absolutely me. He's sarcastic, and he uses humor because it's a deflection mechanism, because quite frankly what he does scares the hell out of him, right? And that is going to be he's going to have to get comfortable in his own skin at some point, and he's not even remotely comfortable in his own skin.
Yeah, you could tell that. Oh, I wonder if that means I'm not either.
I think you're completely comfortable.
I think you're absolutely comfortable in your skin.
Okay.
So.
But I liked his character. I love the fact that he didn't like being told what to do, and he didn't like being controlled. And I'm like, I love him.
He's got a great voice, and then I loved how the action, because we're seeing it all through his perspective, that there's a lot of action, and you feel very immediate in the story. It's not like you're hearing about this had happened and this had happened. You feel very much like you are there in his skin, kind of, and going through all that, and so you have that tension. And yeah.
Oh, good. Well, that was what I was going for, because the part that I love about telling first-person stories is you can have the perceptions of the person who you're speaking through see things that may come into play later, but he doesn't register them as much. So you're given little hints and clues and stuff like that. So you're seeing really a focused area and a focused perspective on that. That's wrong. And the whole reason Simon's the way he is now is because he was all full of himself when he was younger. He was going to be the next savior of the world and all the rest of it. I'm still like that. Hello. I'm like that. And he found out, guess what? The world is pretty complicated. It's pretty messy, and he just couldn't deal with it, and he couldn't deal with what he could do because he had no control over it.
Exactly,
right?
And I like that. He was the hero, but he was human, and he didn't go into everything going, I am going to save, you know what I mean? Well, he was older, but still, he still made mistakes, and he still was flawed, and he still had
beat up and stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't like the other, like when you read other things where they're superhuman and nothing ever happens to them, no matter how many people die around them, they somehow come through untouched and unscathed. He wasn't like that. It was
no, he's definitely scarred, and I have one of the things when reading stories like this when I was younger, comic book wise. Neil Gaiman and Alan Moore and Frank Miller, people in the 80s who wrote the graphic novels, put a grit and put a lot of character development in. They were writing about people. It wasn't just Superman who would go in and save Lois Lane and then just fly away at the end of every episode. They were just absolutely scarred, or they had character flaws, and I have mapped out especially the leading 6 characters. There used to be 7, but I've already killed one off, right? But the 6 maybe.
Yeah. I'm not sure yet.
You haven't seen the body.
Yeah.
Remember, if you don't see the body.
Exactly.
But all of their flaws and their foibles, etc. Janice is at the moment in the story. She's the Rock, and she will be that for a little while, and but she's got her own issues, and she's got her own sense of self that she's got to deal with as well. And there's a short story called Sacrifice that takes place right after the Prodigal's Foole that I've mapped out and will come out at some point, that tells what happened to Janice after the Prodigal's Foole, because it's going to lead into her role moving forward. So I'm sorry, more questions, because I could just wax on poetic for the next 3 hours.
I wasn't being rude. I just was thirsty.
Well, I was wondering, you talk about the first person. Are we always going to be in Symon's? But it sounds like we're not. If we're going to see Janice's story, we're going to be getting into other points of view. Is that right?
We are absolutely going to be getting into other points of view. I played with a format for the young practitioner to go back and forth between Symon's perspective and Isaac's perspective in the story. Didn't like how that flowed, but it's Symon's tale for the most part. There's also a reason why it's in the first person, and that reason you'll find out way down the road. But there's a reason why it's in the first person, and told from Symon's perspective, etc. But you'll get snippets from other people's perspective, right? There's a story down the road that Symon isn't going to be involved with much at all. So
I kind of like him.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like him.
Yeah. I have to ask, because there's a quote on your cover from Patricia Tallman.
Yep.
And the quote is, "Great ride, loved reading it, couldn't put it down," which we all totally agree with. But I am total geek about Babylon 5. I love that series. And she played Lita Alexander on Babylon 5, for those who aren't sure what I'm talking about. So I was wondering how that quote came about. Did you meet her?
She and I have been corresponding for a couple of years. And I sent her a copy of the book because it's the type of stuff that she really loves. And, she went on Twitter about it for a while, which was really sweet of her, and I'm glad she enjoyed it. She was a little mad at me too, because apparently she stayed up all night reading the whole thing, right? And she is.
I know how that is.
Yeah.
I finished it last night at 1 a.m.
Excellent. I love contributing to people's lack of sleep. She's actually probably one of the strongest people I've ever met. Other than my current wife, right? But she's one of the strongest people I've met. She's in an industry that is tough. She's also most of her work is stunt based, right? And so there's a physical demand as well, along with any of the acting she does. So she is. I have a boatload of respect for her and the things that she's gone through, and she's got a book out there that she talks about her memoirs from Babylon 5 that is heartfelt, and I happen to know a good percentage of that stuff is absolutely true. She just tells it the way it is, and she's a straight shooter. So she's a good person, as you can tell. I have a great deal of respect for her.
So did you find her, or did she find you? How'd that original?
That's a good question. I don't actually remember. I think I probably had reached out to her. I must have seen something come across about while she was online. I was like, oh, there's Pat. Hold on a second. Let me send a note. And then we just started chatting and off and on and that sort of thing. So,
well, that's cool.
Yeah,
the power of the internet. I love that.
it is, and a lot of, you won't get. There's a lot of people trying to communicate with a lot of stars and that sort of thing out there. When you get some feedback back, my experience with all of these people is they really love their fans and they'd love to spend a lot of time talking with them, but they work pretty hard.
Yeah.
It's nice to see them in bow ties, etc. But when you have a schedule for a television show where you're in at 4 a.m. and leave at 10 at night, it's a pretty tough day. So there you go.
Absolutely.
That's my Pat Tolman story, and she of course gave me permission to use the quote. In fact, she said, "I want to give you a better quote." I said, "Yeah, but I love that little snippet, so we're going to just run with that one."
Awesome.
So, have you written other stories, or have you?
I'm glad you asked me that. I have a short. There's a writer friend of mine, Karen De La Barre, who almost died last summer from toxic shock syndrome. And she survived because she's damn strong. But she almost died, and there's a lot of medical bills that she's got that are accruing. And I was asked to be involved in an anthology of short stories called the Orange Karen Anthology. Is just a series of stories based on orange and what that means. And I have a story that is going to appear than that. It's a dark comedy story, but it's that's coming out probably within the next couple of months, and that's going to be a fantastic. There's so many good authors in that, and it's just going to be a good anthology. It's the people who are putting it together are really sharp. The people who've edited it are phenomenal, so it's going to be a really good way to help cover her medical expenses. So all the proceeds of that are going to Karen's medical expenses. So that's coming out. So that's the most recent piece, and then the other bits and pieces are various short stories, competitions that I do on a regular basis. The online stuff I used to do 5-minute fiction and things of that nature, just really flash fiction competitions to keep my chops there and sharp and moving forward. So that's about it right now, other than the whole Arcana Chronicles thing.
I just have a question, and then I want to move to your podcast because I think that's cool. Or unless Archer and Ravenheart have questions, but
you're doing good. I just sit back and just watch you go.
Yeah, I know.
She's been dying for this interview since we first showed her the book. She's been chomping at the bit.
I know. I'm like, I can't wait to talk to him. I'm a history nut, and I've never read a book where so much history was thrown into it, and like the pop culture and everything. I'm like, you kept putting like snippets of Vietnam, like you would go into Vietnam, and then you would do, I'm writing the Revolutionary War and the Vietnam and the Dalton Gangs. I wrote stuff down. I'm like, like the pop culture references. I'm like, I so got all of them. And I'm like, what is his deal? I'm like, I love it. I mean, I know it was Symon using them, but I'm like, he must be a huge history nut, or what was the reason for throwing all that in there? The X-Files, Indiana Jones.
Okay, well, there's actually two answers to that. From the history piece, it's to give a sense that this stuff has been going on for a while. Okay. And I think there's especially if you can pull some legitimate stuff out from history, and I am absolutely a history buff because, and I blame my father for that, but it's one of those things that I just really, really enjoy history, because I think if you study history, you won't make mistakes, which is which means that our government obviously doesn't study history.
I agree with you.
Oh, was that out loud? Oh, whoopsie.
No.
Right now, a satellite's being repositioned over my
Yes.
house. I can see. With regard to the kind of the pop references, as I mentioned, I'm movie buff, and there's the people who enjoy a lot of the urban fantasy, especially what I like to do. I mean, there's references to Scooby-Doo in there. There's all sorts of fun stuff, right?
I could write down everything.
But that's Simon's kind of comedic piece. What he did during those 10 years while he was working in a pub in Ireland and hiding in Ireland is he just, he watched a lot of movies. It's all about escapism.
Mm-hmm.
The people who enjoy urban fantasy tend to love those references, right? I'll post on my Facebook page a little Doctor Who picture, and that'll get more likes and more comments than anything to do with my writing, right? And I just think that adds more to his character, and I think it's funny, so I'm going to write it.
I know it was funny. I enjoyed that. I just was like, "Where's he coming from?" I was sitting there going, as from the author, I'm like, "Where's he coming from? What's he doing?" Because I've never seen so much reference, pop culture and history thrown in there. I was like, I didn't know if you were trying to say something or what with the history.
The history is to show the longevity of what's been going on and how magic is kind of woven into history. Like I said, in the second book, it starts with a prologue, and it's at Berchtesgaden. Berchtesgaden is in the Austrian Alps and happens to be Adolf Hitler's, was his summer residence, his retreat, right? And
with Ada Braun.
Who eventually became his wife, and there's a whole other story there. Actually, it's just it's just Hitler and his German Shepherd Blondie. That's the only two in that particular scene. But it's just how is it interwoven and how are those pieces in place? Because a good part of the young practitioner is. And it starts in World War II with an archaeological dig, because I'm a big Indiana Jones fan. But what they find and what they and I'm going to leave the they very, very nebulous for right now, do with what they find up until Simon's time is pretty important. And it plays into why Isaac's in the picture now and stuff like that. So that all those dots will be connected.
Okay.
And I love doing that. There's nothing I like doing. In fact, actually, hold on a second. I can't show you all of this, but quick shot, all the different plot points. That's all the different plot points.
I don't even think I got one word.
You can't reach through the screen, Sherry. I saw you go for it.
Oh man!
But and that's what it's all about. It's showing the history. It's showing magic spin in history if you pay attention, and the pop culture references are really Simon's escapism coming out when things get a little too tense. Those sort of things pop out of him just because he's trying to keep it lighter because he can't deal with the situations when they get that serious. He's going to have to learn to, and he's going to have to learn to very quickly, or a lot of people are going to die.
Okay. Do you believe yourself that there's an ultimate good versus evil?
No, I don't. I think quite frankly, people are people, and they have good and evil in them, and there are way too many gray areas. Not 50 Shades. There are way too many gray areas.
You already did a book on that.
50 Shades of Grey is porn. Okay. So, damn, was that out loud too? I'm gonna get so sued. It's awesome. I don't think anybody starts out to be evil, right? I think if they end up being evil, it's been little pieces that have happened over time from various situations or various decisions they've made that have taken them down a path that they just will never ever recover from.
And each person is born differently too, so there's some
Correct.
people that are just inherently stronger willed than other people too.
Oh, it's good that you brought up willpower.
Yay! Okay.
Willpower is the core of everything that is magical in the world. It has to do with will, connection, and who a person is. Right, so one of the subtle things is there's the use of a staff in the book. I won't get more specific in that. First person who's using the staff, the runes and everything on it, it's bright white. Simon uses it; they're red. Right, so there's the whole piece of that is and that may change over time, and it may get darker, it may get lighter. It'll depend on the path Simon takes. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, I like that.
So I love that. I'm glad somebody's getting all the little subtle stuff I threw in there, because I just love that.
Well, I'm a fan of magic. That's what I'm saying. I was like, ooh, and I like your take and some spins on some of the stuff too, and then some dead-on accurate ones too. And I'm like, awesome, So I don't have any more for the book.
But we were going to have him tell us about his podcast.
Yeah, I want to hear about the podcast because I read a little bit.
Well, the podcast is called The Word Count. I have episode 28 that's about to get put in the can this weekend and get put out there. It is, simply put, a podcast by writers for writers. And we pick a theme, and by we, I mean anybody who's reading my blog, www.r.b.wood.com. And if you see that was good, get them in there. But I have people vote on a couple of different themes, and the one that wins, it gets published as a theme. And basically, writers will have a week or so to write a short story. They record it. They send the MP3 to me, and then I build the show around that particular theme. It's kind of a writer's challenge. Now, I have 6 stories based on the theme this week. The theme for the show that's going to be coming out this weekend is 1, 2, 3. He caressed. I'm looking because I didn't memorize it before I came on the show, so I'm looking at the screen over here.
That's okay.
1, 2, 3. He caressed each bullet in the palm of his hand before slipping it into its chamber, which I thought was interesting with all the problems with guns out there recently. That one was selected, but it must be on people's mind. So that's what they're doing. So we basically collect a series of original stories. I do a show around that. Here's the theme. Here's people's different takes. And it's for up-and-coming authors or authors who are already out there, so their fans can hear their voice. They get a free story. The whole thing is free, right? There's no adverts or anything like that. I do it because I love it, and that's how I've been meeting other writers, etc. And it's just a boatload of fun, and that's all the cast is about.
That's what I liked about it. I'm like, it's not you. It wasn't like me. I mean, the fact that you were doing it for other people and helping other people out, I love that. I love the fact that
I'll throw in something about what I'm working on, but for the most part, it's really not.
No.
But you're right. I mean, for the most part, it's about the people who join me on the show. All I do is connect the dots for the show, and that's it. I add the music and I connect the dots, and that's what I do.
Okay, yeah, because I love the concept of somebody picks a topic, and then you have to write about it. It's like a game. Yes,
that's exactly what it is, and it's loads of fun. I mean, I get people like Eden Bailey and Bill Curtin and Matthew Munson, who are phenomenal writers. Bill Curtin is Scottish, lives in Aberdeen. He used to do broadcasting for the BBC. He used to do voiceovers for the BBC. And when I was living over in Europe, I actually remembered his voice. So the first time he sent me a podcast the show, I completely freaked out because I went, I know that voice, and it took me forever to figure out where I'd heard it before. He's phenomenal. He and I have chatted off and on for years now. Eden Bailey is an erotica writer, right? So the podcast usually gets the explicit tag because I do accept all genres, and there's language in there, and there's some pretty hot stories, especially if Eden's sends a story in. Although, to be perfectly honest, if you hear Eden read the back of a cereal box, it would still like take your breath away, right?
Yeah.
And, Matthew Munson, and there's a few regulars, and new people pop in and pop back out again, and stuff like that. It's just fun, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't take too long. It's a great show to go out there. And with 27 episodes in the can right now, I have nearly 11,000 downloads.
Wow.
So.
Oh my gosh. But you know what? I like the fact that you don't limit the genre, because you're going to get way more people into it, because everybody has a different taste. Everybody likes a different thing. So.
So I think in the story coming up, as you can imagine, there's going to be a couple of crime stories. There's a few different takes, and it's really cool you listen to the stories and go, wow, where did they get that from? oh wow, that's pretty cool. I would have never thought of that. So it's fun, and I learn something when I do it too, because I like to do stuff where I'm going to learn something.
Mm-hmm. That's
Very
good.
cool. So, if it's all right with you, I was going to embed the trailer for Prodigal's Foole on our website when we post this up.
Sure.
If that's all right. It's on YouTube, so we can embed it. So folks can check that out on our website. I noticed that I didn't see it on your website. Did you have it on your website?
I pulled it down because I think it still mentions Fox Chase in the beginning, which is the publisher, and that's why I kind of pulled it down. And I've never redone it since that point. And I was going to re-release that when I do the Young Practitioner trailer as well. I found a phenomenal cover artist. I found him via Elance, believe it or not, and this is what I want to do for a cover. A couple names pop up. I pick a guy who's fairly close to me. I'm in Boston. He's in upstate New York. And his name is Kip Ayers, Ayers. Kip Ayers. Go Kip Ayers Illustration. Go take a look at his work. And he's not only is he reasonable, but he works with he understands writers, he understands storytellers and authors, and he loves to work back and forth with that. So there's a couple things that he's done for me. Obviously, the first cover, which you have, I'll send you the second cover, and the covers for the ancillary stories as well, which I actually have for an inspirational piece. I have it kind of all over my my little writing nook here, so just to keep me focused and moving, because I get distracted by shiny things very easily.
Oh, me too. Are you a Libra?
Sounds familiar.
No, you know what? I'm a Capricorn. Isn't that weird? We're not supposed to get distracted by anything.
Yeah, you're too logical, and I have a sister that's a Capricorn, so I shouldn't really like you right now.
But it's weird because sometimes I get distracted by.
I thought that was a
Shiny
Libra
things.
thing. I'm like, ooh, shiny, pretty.
Red ball of ooh, shiny.
Yes. I'm like a kitty cat. I'm like, oh, look at that. Let me touch it. You know.
So I can send you those that to you guys, and then the trailer's just about done for book 2, so you can take a look at that as well. And again, I have fun doing those sort of things, so I build them myself. So people say, "Oh, this is good. This is not good." Yeah, that's okay. I'm independently published, and I enjoy doing it, so I'm doing it anyway. So thanks very much for playing.
That's cool, and it sounds like you're having fun with it.
Yeah.
I love telling stories. I love meeting fellow writers. I love chatting away about genres and anything to do with writing and developing characters and stories. I just love the entire piece. If I could do that and make enough money to live in Boston, I would absolutely just do that all day long. But I have it, I think we all probably do, right? We have day jobs along with our writing passions. If we could, we'd write all day. But unfortunately, people like to have the bills paid.
I don't know
What's with
why.
that?
Yeah, I know. Food and shelter. What?
Well, one of the cool things for us about being indie is that we can have our own vision and create the world that we see without having to worry about, well, now the editor wants this change, and the publisher was really looking for the next Harry Potter, so now we got to kind of, you can tell your story when you only have to answer to yourself. So I love that. And actually there are indies that are making a living at it now. So,
Well, someday that would be fantastic. I mean, it's I work as a program director consultant for the biotech, pharma, med devices industry on the IT side. So I get people who don't understand what I do with my time. Why don't you play golf? Because I made $4,000 last year at my hobby. How much money did you make at golf? That tends to shut them up, right? So, but that's the perspective they understand. They don't understand the
Well, they're all left brain. They're not right brain. Like, we're right brain people. They're left brain, so they can't understand the creativity. They're more logical, material, money. That all makes sense.
Some people just
math.
can't understand the storytelling. They can't understand authors. They are wired differently, and that's just how it is.
And then I've got a lot of people who I've met professionally who absolutely love what I do. I mean, there was a gig that I was up for that I lost because people were like, "Oh, you do this writing thing, and look at this, and this webcast, this podcast has explicit on the tag, and oh, I don't like that." Well, I don't like you, so I'm okay with that, so it's fine. And then I've got other folks who have hired me, and then they found out later what I do, and they're like, "Oh, wow, you're so versatile, and you're so dynamic, and stuff like that." And there's no better feeling than I walk into a meeting, and then I'm supposed to run with 25 people, and 3 people walk in, and give me a smirk, and then pull out of their bag a copy of my book that they want me to sign, right? That's I just eat that up. There's the ego thing that you hated about the podcast, Sherry, up there.
Yes, it's the ego. Yeah.
No, this is from Sherry, who used to be like, "It's all about me. It's all about me." Remember how you used to joke with that?
It's all about. I think everybody's like that, though, to an extent. But that's what I'll say. But I have this thing now where I separate. I'll be in the middle of an argument with my husband, and I'll be like, "Wait a minute, that was the ego talking." I become Oprah all of a sudden. I'm like, "Okay, this argument, that was my ego, and you hurt my ego, and I know it's So at least I can separate it."
Enough about me. What do you think of my dress? Right. That's
Well, it's been great talking with you, RB. And absolutely, I want you to plug your website. And do you have a separate website for your podcast, or is that off of your website?
Oh, it's all off the same site, www.R.B.Wood.com. It's not difficult to find. Just look for the crazy man.
It's a beautiful website. I love that background.
Oh my God! Even my husband liked that background. That's saying something.
I tend to change that out every month or so, just to kind of change it up a little, and it keeps me remembering the administrator password for my website. So, I built that with a friend of mine and kind of run with it now. And again, yet another hobby I don't have time for, but it's good fun. The podcast information's out there. About me is out there. You find my book at the moment on Amazon. It's going to be in Barnes & Noble, the iBookstore, and Smashwords, and loads of other places shortly. The Prodigal's Foole. Foole spelled Foole. So look it up on Amazon. You'll find it. It's a great cover. There's a picture of me. I'm wearing a hat. It's awesome.
That's great. And we will definitely link to your book, too, when we post this up.
I appreciate that, guys, and I've had a lot of fun today. Thanks very much for having me on the show.
Yay! You're nothing like Simon. Okay, you're a little bit like Simon. A little bit.
I think he has all the best parts of Simon.
Yeah, the best parts of Simon.
Okay, Archer, you're my favorite now. Listen, guys, keep up the good work. The show is really a lot of fun. I've enjoyed listening to it. I've listened to 1.5 of the cast at this point, so I've got some catching up to do because I think you said this is episode 7, right? So
yeah, we've got the 3rd episode just went up yesterday, so we're recording a little bit out because you can't tell, and I've been told this by other people. Sherry is about ready to burst with her second baby.
Yeah, I'm 8 months. I'm 8 months. Another month, I'm going to have my baby boy.
So we're trying to record ahead a little bit so we can cover her break there.
There's no breaks. You're a mom. You're not allowed to have breaks. You do everything for free.
I'm just going to stick a baby to my boob and close the camera off. They said if you need to do that, we'll I click off the camera, and then we'll go. Yeah, we'll just keep going. We're just.
I can't believe we got 9,000 downloads in one day for the show. Oh, I forgot to turn my camera off.
You have to adjust the camera back down there, Sherry.
Yeah, I'll just tilt it up. Yeah. Well, wait. Gotta switch.
This is natural. What's wrong with you people?
Yeah.
What's going on? I'm bohemian. You just boob. That's what God made him for.
It's just the actors coming out,
Yeah.
What I really like is the fact that during this whole discussion about boobs, Ravenheart has just sat there and been very quiet. Very smart man, sir. Very smart man.
With that grin, though, he's got to have that grin.
Oh, man.
I've always got the grin, though.
Exactly.
That's his poker face. It's his poker face.
All right, guys, loads of fun. I'll send you a couple of things and enjoy, and then maybe that'll lead to more questions. It's been loads of fun. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Thank you.
You have to let us know when the next book comes out so we can have you back.
Yeah, I wanted to volunteer that, but I was like, I'm not going to, you have to come back now.
You have to come back. If she doesn't want to say, I'll say, you have to come back.
Okay.
You know what? I'll come back even if we're not doing a show, because you guys are fun.
Yes.
I like it.
We want to do, what would you do in case of a zombie apocalypse? Would you like, we should have you come back for that. And we just throw out ideas what we're going to do in case of a zombie apocalypse.
All right, let me tell you what I do, because I can tell you this real quick. It'll take 2 seconds. You ready? During a zombie apocalypse, I will scream like a 12-year-old girl. And about 5 minutes later, I would be one of the guys out there like this. Brain! Because I'm just not going to survive it. It's just not going to happen. I'm going to get eaten by the zombies. They're going to take the brain, and I'm going to be after all you guys. That's just going to be me.
Okay. Archer and I are planners. We've got a whole system set up.
Yeah, I'm going to follow the crowd on this one. I'm going to be one of the decaying undead chasing your asses to eat your brains.
So even if you survive, we see you coming, we're shooting you. Sorry.
Yeah.
I actually recommend people do that whether there's a zombie apocalypse or not anyway. All right, guys, I better run.
Okay, bye.
Awesome, thank you.
Bye.
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 You've been listening to the Ultimate Urban Fantasy Podcast. Find us on the web at ultimateurbanfantasy.com. Make sure you sign up for the mailing list for updates and goodies. And hook up with us on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and YouTube. You can find out more about Archer and Ravenheart's The She series at shetouch.com. That's SIDHETOUCH.com. See you next time.